So next talk is Ross Moore, and he has a series of talks about jamming in or building accessibility into PDFs
Yeah.
using tech. And
Yeah.
with you, Ross Moore.
Okay. So, first of all, hello to everybody. Um, as you can see, I'm slightly more heavily dressed than most of the rest of you that I've seen videos of, because in the southern hemisphere it's kind of middle of winter down here. It's a bit cold. So greetings from Australia, or greetings to Australia, let's say, whichever way round you want to think of it when everything's done electronically. And you can see I'm sitting here in my little office in a kind of a corner of the office. The lighting's not fantastic, but it should be adequate. And I've actually got a second stream, which is labelled Ross's iPad. Some of you may be able to see that. The video is not running on it, but it allows me to see that what you can see, as well as allow me to control from my main laptop. Okay, so I think I will start off by sharing a presentation through Acrobat Pro. And okay, so let's share that. At the moment it's not set back to the front page, so let's set that back to page 1 and go to full screen mode. Okay, view, full screen mode. Okay, so here we go. So this is our standard template at Macquarie University, and I'll be using this for probably all 3 of the talks that I'm involved in. A nice splash page, and okay, so the first talk is, sorry,
Excuse me,
if there's any problems.
we don't see you. We see black screen here.
Am I not showing in a... Oh, you don't see me on the blank screen. Okay. Well, what's going on here? Sharing is paused. Sharing is paused. What's that all about?
You need you need to make the screen that you're sharing your primary. So you basically need to return the screen to not to pause sharing.
Okay, well, let me... What I'll do is do the whole desktop sharing, because I was going to need to do that anyway at some point. So let's start off with it that way. And let's just check. Okay, that's better.
We can see that.
That's okay now?
Yeah, we can see that fine.
You can see that now? Fine. Okay. So let me... Oh, I now need to... Oh, and it's gone full screen even. So my view, that makes it harder for me to see what I'm doing. Oh no, okay, no, that's okay. Okay, so the first question is, what is accessibility? What does accessibility really mean, or what does it mean to say that an electronic document is accessible? Okay, so I'm going to list about half a dozen points and go through them all, just to say what they are first, then go back through them and add some more to it, and then go back to the first one and do even more. So let's see. The first thing you need to be able to extract the characters out of your PDF documents. Okay, so the electronic document, I mean, is PDF, but it could have been an HTML document, it could have been a XML document. You need to be able to get your characters out. If you can't get your characters out, you don't really have much information in there at all, do you? So you've got to get them out, but also getting them out correctly, right? Interword spaces is important. I put these 3 together. A concept of semantics comes into it very much. Alternative text, if you've got lots of figures and formulas and tables, there should be some extra alternative text in there to help explain what the figures are about for anyone or any system that can't actually see those figures. And metadata is quite important too. As to which of those, what's the correct ordering, as to which is most important, that might depend upon the particular document itself. So that's why I brought the three of them up at the same time. And then we have the concept of harder semantics, much more semantic information in the document. Okay, so let's go back and look at these individually. Extract characters correctly. Well, you know, most of computing was come out of the English-speaking world, and ordinary Latin letters and things generally can be extracted pretty well. But then the big question is, what about other languages and scripts? Can you extract them correctly? And of course, the idea is that you map everything to Unicode wherever you possibly can. Okay, interword spaces. Okay, here's an example that we use in one of my lecture courses that I teach. Use it as an example. This collection of letters, you can probably see words in there. Okay, and there's one way of doing it. Okay, and this kind of brings up the idea of how maybe there's been a boating accident and two men are sinking or whatever. But maybe you see words differently. Here's another way of breaking it up with interword spaces, and here the context is quite different. Maybe something to do with obtaining ink from your stationery supply store or something of that kind. Okay, so interword spaces are important. It turns just a collection of letters into meaningful words, and that then those words will then be interpreted in some context. Okay. Soft semantics, well, here we mean things like section headings, lists, tabular content, right? Think of information being conveyed through some kind of software interface to some other kind of hardware, maybe which drives pins on a braille keyboard, or maybe it drives speaking those words through a screen reader, or any kind of situation where software is interfacing with other software and your document in order to convey the meanings of things. You kind of want to know when the words you're speaking are a section heading rather than part of a paragraph. You want to know when things are in lists. You want to know when the information is being laid out in the table, because it's going to make a big difference to the way that you interpret what you're receiving. Okay, so they're soft ones. They're the soft semantics, I call them, because they're the ones that are just so totally obvious that you need to be able to support this. Okay, alternative text. Okay, for figures, formulas and tables. Well, the only comment I want to make here is that alternative text is not the same thing as a caption, right? It conveys different ideas. It's meant for a different purpose. Example, I was trying to think of, right? Suppose you've got an image of, say, two cats sitting on the lounge room floor on a mat or something like that. One of them's a Persian, one of them is a Siamese, and your caption might be saying something like, Persian cats have much fluffier fur, much longer fur than Siamese cats have, or something of that kind. The alternative text should be simply saying, two cats sitting on a mat in the lounge room, or something like that. Okay, so that someone who cannot see the picture can visualize what is in the picture, and then the caption says what was important, why do we want to see this picture at all, what is the extra information that the picture is meant to be conveying. But the alternative text is describing the picture itself. The caption describes why are we interested in this picture. Okay. Metadata. Okay, metadata, there's all kinds of metadata, and okay, just simply having the title of the document in the window, at the top of the window, rather than just the name of the file as the title of the window. Okay, so something sensible for the window title, that's kind of metadata. But metadata generally, it helps you solve all kinds of questions. right? Are you actually looking at the file that you want to look at? Okay. Do you want to read the information in this file? The metadata tells you a little bit about it. You can make that decision for yourself on the basis of the metadata. And maybe you want to find related information either by the same authors or by keywords or by subject matter. Okay. You look at the metadata first, and that helps you to answer these kinds of questions. Okay. So the important message here is that don't underestimate the value of metadata, right? It helps you do lots and lots of things. Okay, hard semantics. Okay, these are things more like, say, the information is footnotes, or it's referencing, cross-referencing, or referencing into bibliographies, citations, hyperlinking, cells in tables, table of contents, all kinds of things that we're interested in doing, and we have been doing a lot with LaTeX documents over the years. We need to, so the point is that we want to know that these are the kinds of things that the information is, and that has to be conveyed through the PDF document. Okay, so now let's, okay, here's some extra terms and things. If we want our PDFs to satisfy published standards, PDF A in 1A, 2A, 3A, the little a stands for accessibility, the big A stands for archivability. Okay. PDF UA, this is the big one around at the moment. UA stands for universal accessibility. Okay. The Matterhorn protocol, well, this has been developed by the PDF A and UA specialists as describing a whole set of conditions that your document should satisfy, or the information in your document should satisfy, and they're very explicit tests for a lot of it, and some of it is more things that the author has to look at for themselves and decide is everything correct. Okay, and then Acrobat Pro gives you a whole stack of extra tests. Most of the tests of the accessibility are the kinds of things that are in the Matterhorn protocol, but there are a few differences. Okay. And some more things of that kind. Okay, so let's go back to think of this first one. Right, the very basic thing. Can we extract the characters out of our PDF correctly? Okay. Well, there's various ways in which this is achieved. We're going to talk about these. So CMaps. CMaps are very, very important. In tech, virtual fonts, there's a very good place for virtual fonts, and ActualText is a way of putting extra information into your PDF such that it overrides what would naturally would come out just by considering the text itself. So it lets you provide an alternative interpretation for the actual font characters that are appearing within the PDF document. Okay, so that's the main idea for this talk. We'll go through discussing those things in more detail. But first of all, let's think back. Right? I've been using tech for a very, very long time, although I know there are a few people in the audience who have been at it for longer than I have. But my involvement goes back to the 1980s, say the mid-1980s onwards. And in all of that time, there has been difficulty extracting text reliably from PDFs. Right? So in particular, right, I teach mathematics, and colleagues might have produced lecture slides, lecture notes with exercises, and I want to copy those exercises for an exercise sheet to prepare for my classes. And basically with tech-produced PDFs, that was very hard to do. It wouldn't happen. You copy a piece of mathematics, paste it into the text source for, well, a text document for the one that for what you're trying to produce, your exercise sheet, and you'd pick up all kinds of wrong characters, invisible characters, minus signs don't come out as minus signs. They give you, tech doesn't understand what this character is. All kinds of things of that happened. And So, you know, well, we're going to ask the question, why do these things happen, right? And it depends on can depend on the font. Can it be fixed? It seems that most tech fonts have some kind of problem, but yeah, they can be fixed. They can be fixed. Well, mostly they can be fixed. Is it easy to fix it? Well, that's what this talk is meant to be about. So the answer is yes, kind of, and sometimes not really. It depends just what it was. And certain things are not so easy to fix, but they can be fixed. Okay, so I'm going to switch to looking at some example documents. So here's links through to those documents, and we can go to the first one. And so let's go to the first one, and you see here I've got some text which I've copied, little snippets of text that I've copied from web pages in different languages. And I'm going to say, well, what if I want to copy all of this? Let's copy all this. Well, okay, don't have to copy all of it. Let's copy that and then go to another text document and have a look at the result. Okay, so at this point I need to share the whole desktop. Oh, I am sharing the desktop, aren't I? Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to get out of full screen mode. That's what I need to do. Maybe I'll stop that share, get myself out of full screen mode, and then try and get back in again. Then get back in again. Okay, so yeah, I'm not in full screen mode, so let's share. Okay. Alright, so maybe I'm okay. I'll just go across to okay, so yeah, that's good. Okay, on the right hand side you can see the actual text source that I used, and on the left hand side I'm going to paste in what I just copied. And if you look at it, well, there's a kind of things that are problematic. First of all that stuff that was small cap, I deliberately chose a small caps font in order to show this, to make it so much more obvious. But you can see that all of the stuff that should have been lowercase is now uppercase. That's not great. And then look at what happens with these accented characters, right? The accent is not over the character. Is it meant to be the character before, or is it meant to be the character after? Some of the accents are okay. Okay, here's another one. Where does this little agonic, or whatever it's called, cedilla, which character should it be on? And so on. So this is a bit of a mess, isn't it? Okay. I want to stop this sharing it for the moment and ask the question, how many of you have seen this kind of stuff before and have been worried about it? Right? You don't get the characters that you think you want. Okay, so I'm putting up a poll to allow you to actually quickly give us an answer. All right, so as many of you who have got access there, just you can choose as many of the options as you like. I'd like to see a few answers coming in, and right, yeah, okay, most of them are coming in saying, yeah, I've seen this mess and I know all about this mess. Okay, and there's another message. Yeah, yes, no, it's not because that. No, right, yes, there's some discussion even about this. Okay, so I think that's probably enough. I think that lets me know the experience of the people in the audience, which is really what this poll is for. And yeah, some of them with math content, but not much. Okay, so let's end that poll. Share the results. Well, what does that do? Okay, so there's the results. Okay, so 85% of you have seen exactly this kind of mess. Okay, And so that's what needs to be fixed. Okay, so I'm going to stop that sharing and then go back to sharing my screen again. Okay, so let's share that desktop. There we go. Okay, now I want to go back to Acrobat Pro. Okay, so that was one of my examples. Oh, blast, I'm not getting... Okay. No, I can't get myself out of this. I'm not getting the view from Acrobat that I had earlier. So that means I'm going to have to stop that share again and go back to Acrobat different way. Oh, it's Acrobat that's doing it to me. It's put me in a mode that I didn't want to be in. I'm sorry about this, people. This Acrobat has done something to me that I wasn't expecting it to do, and I seem to have lost the means to get at all of its controls. Sorry, someone's trying to say something. I can't hear you. Sorry,
Somebody suggested Control L.
Yeah, Control L sounds like a good idea. Yeah, Control L. Yeah, okay. It's still not perfect, but at least I've got a bit more control. I don't want full screen mode, display theme, page display, single page view. I still can't get the menus that I want to get. Okay, I'm going to quit out of Acrobat and come back into it, so I regain control. Sorry about that. Okay, that's better. Accessibility talks. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's get back to sharing. Okay, share screen. All right, and let's keep it on the desktop rather. Okay. Right, so here's the second of those files that was in my presentation, and I want the last page, and here it's the same stuff. It's the same text. I want to copy it again. Copy, come back to where I was in text shop, and now paste. Okay, and now if you have a look at this, it's now all much better. First of all, we've got rid of the small caps and it's back to pasting as lowercase. Okay, and check out all of those accents. Right, all of the accents are correctly over places. Even these ets characters are coming through correctly. Right, everything now is much better than what it was before. Okay, so that's what I meant by saying yes, we can solve these problems. Here is an example where it has been solved, and this is exactly the same font. Right, as far as the font that we were using was Bitstream's Charter font, and it was using it as a faked small caps using virtual fonts, and by finding out where things were not being done correctly and fixing them, then we can now get the correct copy paste. Okay, so that's basically to show you that, yeah, what I'm saying is not just something up in the sky, airy fairy, theoretical. It can actually be done, and now I need to show you how I did it, or some of the techniques involved in how that was done. Okay, so right, okay, so there is a third one there, and there's a third document. I'm not actually going to go into that document, but this one is, it's kind of like laboratory notes. It's about 25 megabytes worth of examples of font charts and pictures which explain the difficulties and explain a little bit about how they were fixed, and we'll make this available to everybody. I tried to, yeah, it is already available as a link, but you need to know what the links are in order to get at these three documents. Okay, but for now I want to move on and try to explain the techniques that are being used. And well, okay, so what's happened? There's basically three categories, right? The small caps need to be mapped back to ordinary lowercase letters. Okay, so we've seen that that can be done. Okay, accents. The accent characters need to come after the base that they modify. And the reason for that is because that's the way it's done in Unicode, and when you're extracting the text into via copy paste and other methods, you're normally extracting into Unicode. Okay, there are some individual characters for which this is not enough. For a lot of the font characters, these two things are enough. Well, this one is only applicable when you're doing small caps fonts. Accents coming after the base is applicable to every font that has accented characters in it, and then there can be other characters that need special treatment as well. So let's just go back and have a look at these ideas a little bit. The idea with small caps is that you need to attach a CMap to the font instance. The font instance, and the word instance there is important. Okay, what you do is that you need to duplicate the Roman font from which the capital letters were coming from. So in other words, you take the TFM font, you make a second copy of that TFM font, and you're going to attach the CMap to that second copy. You don't attach it to the original Roman font or to the small caps virtual font. You need this second copy, and we'll see how that's done in a little while. Okay. Well, in fact, right, and the reason is this is because this is what you need things to look like inside your PDF, right? You need the font, and you see bitmap charter Roman occurs twice. Okay, so it's the same font, and you can see from these reference numbers 540R, 540R, they're referencing the same font, but you've got two Unicode CMaps. One of them is object number 2, one of them is object number 66. Okay, and they do different things. They do different mappings of your characters into Unicode. Okay, so that's the basis of the technique. Okay, for accents, okay, all accent characters, the individual characters in the fonts, need to be mapped to the Unicode combining accent characters, right? Not to the standard standalone acute accent by itself. It has to be the combining acute accent, and this can be done again using a CMap. Okay, but then the important thing is that the accent has to come after the base is put down. And this is the problem in most tech fonts, is that it's done the other way. If you're going to do an A acute, the acute accent gets placed first, and then the A comes afterwards below it. And Knuth did all devised it that way, putting the accent starting from the top of a box, working down vertically. If the accent was an over accent, the accent would come first and the base would come afterwards. That has to be changed. So the big lesson here is you have to change that and place the accent after the base has happened. The accent still gets placed above the letter, of course, but it just occurs later in the file, just a tiny bit later than the way TeX has traditionally done things. Okay, and you do this within a virtual font, of course. Okay, so this has to be done within a virtual font. And so this kind of consideration is going to apply to every T1 encoded font that is distributed with TeX distributions, and of course to other fonts as well. Okay, so this is actually a big job that needs to be done. Okay, and then there can be some individual characters needing special treatment, and here it's not a matter of CMaps. Okay, it depends upon the characters what needs to be done, so we can have a look at some of those. But the thing that I discovered just about 6 months ago or more is that you can actually put arbitrary PDF content using special instructions inside virtual fonts. Okay, and okay, I discovered this by looking at by looking back through through various mailing list archives, and in fact I found this one on the TeX Fonts mailing list dating back to November 2011. Okay, Lars Hallström had an example where he used special commands inside a virtual font description. And once I saw that that was possible, I thought, well, okay, oh, in fact, this syntax here is not correct. That should be these should be angle brackets, not round brackets. Okay, so sorry about that. I should have fixed that up. Okay, and you can actually now use ActualText inside the virtual font description of a character. Okay, so it has a span at the beginning, attaching an ActualText, begin the mark content, and then at the end of it, end the mark content. And what that now means is that if you select the this character and copy and paste it, you won't get what the character maps to, you'll get what the actual text says you want it to be. Okay, so this is a very, very powerful technique, and it's very new, but of course there's difficulties in using it. Okay, so this latter technique doesn't work with Zatek. Right, I've tried it. You can do it. Zatek doesn't, or the Zatek sends you messages when it encounters these things saying it doesn't know what to do, but then it ignores it, and so you're not actually any worse off. You just can't get what you really want. Okay, and there's a reason for this, and it is something that maybe can get fixed at some point. Okay. Okay, CMaps. What are CMaps? Okay, different ways to add CMaps to a font. Okay, pdfTeX is really good at it. It can create CMaps automatically. You have to switch it on. You have to tell pdfTeX that you're wanting CMaps to be made automatically, and that's what this command is for. Generate to Unicode CMaps, give it a positive value, and it will do it. Okay, and how does it do it? You have files with mappings of glyphs into Unicode values. Okay, the main one is this file, pdf glyph to unicode.tex. You've already got it on your TeX system. Okay, and it uses a primitive pdf glyph to Unicode where you give it the glyph name. So that's going to be just the text of the name, and then you provide it with a Unicode string in hex. It doesn't have to be a single Unicode character. You can actually have multiple characters in there. You have to separate the different characters with a space. It can interpret 4-bit hex strings as single letters. You can even do 5 and 6 and longer hex strings. And so if you want as a single character, okay, so if you're wanting multiple characters, you have to put a space between those characters, and so on. But when it gets put into the PDF file, or those spaces are removed, and you just get the continuous, correctly balanced Unicode description. Okay. pdfTeX package, it helps in this a lot. Not only does it automatically load PDF glyph to Unicode, but it also loads a few other files with different glyph names that people have used for different kinds of fonts, and all the new tech fonts are meant to be supported properly in there. Okay, the glyph names that are being used. Okay, but of course the problem is that's not, well, there's another way you can attach a CMap directly to a TFM font. Okay, and so here's some coding that allows that to happen. Okay, you're going to have a macro. It's going to take two parameters. One parameter is the name of the CMap file. That's the first parameter. And then the second is the name of the TFM file that you're wanting the CMap to be attached to. Okay, so you're going to need those two things. First of all, you need to read in the file that's going to be attached and make it into a PDF object so that it gets included in the PDF document. Okay, and then you make a reference to that object. Okay, so here's the reference. Take the number of the last object created on the previous line with a space 0R, so a reference to that object, and it's going to go in as the as a value of the Unicode code word. Okay, and that will then be put into a font description dictionary. As a PDF just says it's an attribute of the font, but that means put it in as an entry into the appropriate dictionary. And then once you've done that, you need to say, well, all right, option one here was saying we can do things automatically. You need to say, I don't want you to do it automatically. Since we've already done it, I don't do it automatically. So set a parameter for that font saying, don't, when you're building this font, don't use the automatic stuff, use the file that we've already provided for you. Okay, and then there's a third thing that you have to do just to be sure that things will work the way that you've tried to set it up. Okay, and that is, you want to say, okay, even without having processed anything in the document yet, include the letter A in the font, include the space character in the font. Okay, and once you've done that, this will ensure that this font can't be discarded. Even if that font instance is never used again in the document, it's still going to be, it can get combined with other instances of the same font, and we know that we're going to pick up this stuff correctly, and we know that we're going to use the CMap file that we've associated to it. Okay, and so actually doing that in practice, here's an example. If in your small caps font you're going to take a TFM and scale it to 800%, right, in order to get your small caps files, you then want to attach that CMap, a CMap that does the right thing, to that font. And then of course you need to have a map line which tells it to, whenever you've come across this font, then you have to load the appropriate PFB file, the actual font description that's going to go into the PDF document. Okay, so those are the things that you need to do. Okay, and then okay, ZTAC has a different way of adding CMap files directly to the PDF font. Okay, okay, it does it in a different way. Okay, and that way is to, right, the point about ZTAC is that it's DVI based rather than directly constructing the PDF itself. It has to handle DVI information across to a post-processing thing. So what's it called, dvipdfmx or something like that, and the special command now is what tells that piece of software to pull in and attach the appropriate CMap file. Okay, and you probably have a CMap file for the original Roman version of the font, and you also need it for the extra small caps version of the font. Okay, so these get attached in different font instances. Okay. Okay. So what for the fake small caps font, this is what we have to do. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so the hard part about using this technique is that you have to know which TFM font is the one that you attach the CMap to, right? So we've kind of showed it in the previous slide. I've got a reference here to a message. Well, it's actually from the CMap package, where Volovich basically says you can't attach CMaps to virtual fonts. Well, that's actually not correct. You can, but you're not really attaching it to the virtual font. You're actually attaching it to one of the sub-fonts that the virtual font refers to. Okay, so Volovich's statement is correct when interpreted in one way, but it's not correct when it's interpreted in a different way. Okay, so here's what has to happen. Here's the problem. Right? If we look inside the virtual font for Bitstream Charter, Roman, 8-bit map used for small caps, we find that it references that it defines two fonts. One font called map font D0 and map font D1. Okay, and both of them are the same font. Okay, BCHR8R, BCHR8R. These are used for the real capital letters. These are used for the small caps capital letters. You see the scale factor of 0.8. Okay. Trouble is, you can't attach a CMap file to this that's going to turn the small caps, right, the characters used this way as small capitals. You can't attach a CMap that's going to map them to lowercase when they're used as small caps letters, and as uppercase when they're used as uppercase letters. Okay. So what you have to do is that you have to take a second copy of this font. Okay. So here's what you have to do. You have to change the font. So here I've given it a new name. I've just added an S on the end of it. Okay. But it is actually the TFM file for this font is just exactly the same as the TFM file for that font. You've just renamed it. That's all we've done. And then you attach the special CMap file, and that CMap file is now going to map all uppercase letters in the font into lowercase letters. Okay, which is the reverse of what happens with what you think of what happens with small caps. Right, if a lowercase a maps to an uppercase a, well, you have to reverse that. You have to send all of the uppercase capital letters, the uppercase Latin letters into lowercase capital letters using the CMap file. Okay, and once you've done that, and okay, now we can call up our attached CMap file macro from the previous slide, and attaching it now to this second copy, which is the one that handles the lowercase letters. Okay, and that gives us our two separate font instances inside the PDF, and so here's that picture back again. So this is how we achieve these two font instances. Okay, so the technique really does work. Okay, accented letters. We need to put the accents after the base. Okay, so here's a description on the left. This is what the description of an accented character normally looks like. Okay, so it should be this a brev character, character 13. Well, it's not, it's an octal, so it's actually character 11. 8 and 3 is 11. Is in the appropriate font. is the brev accent character, and then the base follows after it. Okay, you have to swap that around. Here we put the base first, and then we do the accent character. Okay, and that's what's going to have to happen. Okay, so when you do this, there's no visual difference within the PDF, but now the brev accent character is placed after the base, and so is extracted after it. And if you extract it as a Unicode combining character, then your text will show the proper accented letter. Okay. Okay, so yeah. Okay. Since there's two fonts involved here, you don't actually have to do it for the main font. That can be allowed to be done, to be generated automatically, because that's fine, because it's the lowercase letters that need to be mapped back, the lowercase capitals that need to be mapped back into ordinary lowercase letters, and so the special CMap only needs to be attached to the second font instance, not the first one. Okay, and if you look through a T1 encoded font, there can be as many as 105 different letters there where an accent over needs to be swapped around, like in the coding up here. Okay, the pushs and pops make it nice and easy to do, so that you're not upsetting the coordinate system in placing the letters inside the letters and characters and glyphs inside building up this letter. Okay, so that's that one. And then now for the other technique. Okay, so again, I've made reference to Lars Hellström's posting. Okay, he tried to do something in particular there in order to obtain the visible space character, and this is what he tried to do, which in fact doesn't work. Right, it gives you certainly valid PDF, that's okay, but it doesn't actually extract. Okay, so here's what I've done instead. Again, you'll find that most of it's identical, except that I've included an extra character here, which comes from the special font that one uses. Well, yeah, it comes from the special font that one can use with pdfTeX for a very, very fine, thin, almost infinitely thin space character, which is used as the PDF fake space. Well, it's accessed when you use the primitive PDF fake space. Here it is. You make sure that you've loaded the appropriate font, and so it's going to be done as yet a third font within this virtual font. It has just the single character of a space, which has a width of something like 10 to the minus 5 of a point. Okay, and then everything else is the same. Right, so you notice that. Okay, yes, so you've got and the EMC can come after that. Okay, because the rules aren't going to be selected anyway. Okay, so the rules that draw the visible picture is handled down here, but the extraction is handled up here, and you've put in that extra fake space, and that now allows you to correctly extract the visible space as this appropriate Unicode character. Okay, so we've got one. Yeah. Okay, so we've used that fake space. Okay, and right, so the character it maps to is going to be this one. Okay, and I think that's. Oh yeah. Okay, so here's some more examples of of this technique. Okay, here's where we construct the Dutch IJ character, IJ ligature character. Right, in the virtual font, it just puts together the letter capital I and the letter capital J. But when you extract it, you can extract it out as the Unicode character at this position. Okay. This one, here's how you do a zero width non-joiner. character, which some tech fonts refer to. Again, you need to use that fake space trick. Okay, and now you can extract that fake space as a non-joiner, a zero width non-joiner character. This one is a dotless I in a small caps font. Okay, the idea there is that, okay, the fake small caps font just uses, for the dotless I, just uses an ordinary capital I because it's in small caps and it doesn't have a dot on it. But when you extract it, you're wanting it to extract as the Unicode dotless I character, which is at this position. Okay, so again, see, it depends on the character as to just what you have to do, but you can handle it using ActualText. Okay, and so yeah, okay, and in fact you can do this for any character inside a virtual font, right? You can override what it would otherwise map to and make it map to something completely different, should this be an appropriate thing to do. Okay, so I think that's, oh, okay, so yes, drawbacks, there's always a drawback. So far this only works in pdfTeX, because pdfTeX is what gives you the fake space character, although that can be used in other engines as well. So LuaTeX, this may well still work, and as I said earlier, it won't work in ZTeX because it doesn't recognize this PDF direct correctly. And if I can explain why, but I don't think everyone wants to know why, just the fact that it doesn't work yet. Okay, so that's going on to the next talk. So I think that's a good place to finish. I think we've covered the 3 techniques, none of which I've seen documented before anywhere, apart from that single reference in the mailing list from Lars Hellström, which tweaked me to the fact that, hey, this kind of thing is possible, and so let's try and make good use of it. Okay, so wow, that's almost an hour, so please, I'll stop there and hand back to Paolo. And any questions?
Yeah, you have 3 questions there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look.
Question answers. Did you read that to people, or may have people on YouTube which haven't seen those messages?
Okay, so the questions I'm seeing here don't look like. Okay, right. Starting from Armand, 3 questions. Why it happens depends on fonts. A lot of tech fonts are broken. Does that mean commercial open type fonts are easier and their support will arrive sooner? I've had this copy paste problem with commercial Devanagari font. Yeah. Okay, so as I've said, yes, it happens with a lot of tech fonts. I said that early. And I think I've probably covered the reasons why it happens. Accents need to come after the base they modify. Does your solution only work with Latin scripts for now? Because in some scripts, glyph modifying characters can come after or before. Okay, so the answer to that is, well, it should work. If you construct your virtual font, right, if there is a virtual font already, then go and have a look at it and see what will happen if you change the order of things within the character descriptions, and it should happen. It's also the ligature mechanism, right? So the ligature mechanism might help with these kinds of things where you say some come before, some come after. Okay, the beauty of putting the actual text inside the character description is that it does not interfere with kerning tables, and it doesn't interfere with any remappings that the ligatures might do within the virtual font. Okay, so you just have to work out, can you get the characters in the right order with the actual text in the right places, such that you can reproduce what you're wanting when you copy and paste into Unicode. Can you then construct the correct Unicode string for what you need with that particular collection of characters? So I'd say the answer to that is yes, it should well work with other Latin scripts. I'm sorry I don't have a definite example of that, but I don't see why. Copy pasting face space character into a text editor renders a tofu. No, it doesn't. You're not copying the fake space. You are copying the Unicode that has been associated to that fake space. And if you were copying a fake space, it comes out as an ordinary space character anyway. So there's no tofu in this at all. It is a perfectly valid mechanism, and in fact that's what happens with pdfTeX anyway. When pdfTeX produces fake spaces, they copy and paste as ordinary spaces. It's exactly their purpose. So, okay, so that's 3 questions there from Aman. They are good questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to see the other 2, which are somewhat related to this one, isn't it?
Okay, so I've got another indicator up here. What is that in the chat? Is there something?
In the chat,
not Latvian, Lithuanian. Okay, sorry about that, mate. Sorry about that, Tom. Okay, okay. If your editor doesn't have the glyphs, if the font you're using in the editor doesn't have the glyphs, then yes, of course it won't copy paste correctly. But that's not the issue attached here. The Czechs look like Turkish to me. Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe I mixed up Turkish and Czech. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't read all these languages. I just copied some things from Wikipedia. So I copied things out of web pages. So yeah, good set of questions.